Some powers in Percy Jackson don't just make you stronger, they change what kind of person you become. That's why they're considered dangerous and why some are treated as forbidden. Toxikinesis. Toxikinesis is the ability to control poison as if it were water. Percy Jackson demonstrates this in Tartarus, where he forces liquid poison to move, stop, and attack under his control. His abilities come from Poseidon, which ties them to water in its natural forms, including oceans, rivers, and currents. Poison does not belong to that domain. It represents decay and destruction rather than life and flow. It behaves differently, spreads differently, and carries a completely different purpose. Despite that, Percy manipulates it with the same precision he uses on water, holding it in place and turning it into a weapon. This is where the shift happens. Percy is no longer working within the limits of his power. He is applying it to something it was never meant to affect. That suggests his abilities are not strictly defined by element, but can be forced beyond their original boundaries under extreme conditions. The way he uses it reflects that change. Instead of controlling for movement or defense, Percy applies pressure, forcing the poison to overpower an enemy. Annabeth Chase recognizes the difference immediately, reacting with concern rather than relief. There is no external force stopping Percy from doing this again. That's where the shift starts. Because once a power stops following its own rules, it stops being predictable. And some abilities don't just bend those rules, they start pulling the user with them. Large-scale necromancy. Large-scale necromancy is the ability to summon and control multiple dead spirits at the same time. Nico di Angelo uses this through his connection to the Underworld, allowing him to raise skeletons, command ghosts, and direct them with precision. At a smaller scale, this means calling a few spirits into battle. At a larger scale, it means maintaining control over entire groups of the dead simultaneously. The ability depends on one thing: control. Every spirit Nico summons has to be held in place and directed. That control does not come from the environment around him. It comes from him. The more spirits he raises, the more strain is placed on his body to keep them anchored and under command. That strain builds quickly. After extended use, Nico becomes physically unstable. His strength drops sharply, his body weakens, and his ability to remain standing begins to fail. In extreme cases, he starts to lose cohesion as if his form is no longer fully anchored in the physical world. The scale of the power determines the cost. Controlling a small number of spirits is manageable. Raising larger groups pushes him closer to his limit. Each increase in scale multiplies the pressure on his body, making the ability harder to sustain and more dangerous to rely on in prolonged situations. The effect is not limited to physical exhaustion. Repeated use strengthens Nico's connection to the dead while weakening his connection to the living. He becomes more isolated, both emotionally and physically, as his powers pull him further toward the underworld. At its highest level, necromancy stops being a tool and starts becoming a state the user is pulled into. Control over the underworld rivers. The rivers of the underworld are not ordinary water. Each one represents a force tied to existence itself. The river Lethe removes memory. The river Styx binds oaths and grants invulnerability at a cost. The river Phlegethon carries fire instead of water. These are not elements. They are functions of the world. Percy Jackson interacts directly with one of these forces in Tartarus when he controls the river Phlegethon. Instead of treating it as fire, he treats it as a current, forcing it to move and respond as if it were water. That shift changes what his power is doing. Percy is no longer controlling something within his domain. He is applying his abilities to a substance that operates under completely different rules. The river Phlegethon does not behave like water. It burns continuously and exists as part of the underworld structure, not the natural world. Controlling it requires overriding that distinction. The environment amplifies the difficulty. Tartarus places constant physical and mental strain on anyone inside it. Maintaining control over a force like Phlegethon in that environment requires sustained focus while also resisting the effects of the surroundings. The same pattern applies to the other rivers. The river Lethe affects memory and identity. The river Styx binds power to a single point of failure. Interacting with these rivers means engaging with forces that alter how a person exists rather than simply how they fight. At that level, the ability is no longer about elemental control, it becomes an interaction with the underlying rules that define life, identity, and destruction. Shadow travel. Shadow travel is the ability to move instantly between locations by passing through darkness. Nico di Angelo uses this by stepping into one shadow and emerging from another, effectively bypassing distance altogether. It allows him to cross cities, battlefields, and even large regions in a matter of moments. The ability functions by turning darkness into a pathway. Instead of moving through physical space, Nico moves through the absence of light, using shadows as entry and exit points. This makes the ability highly efficient, especially in situations where speed or escape is critical. The limitation appears after the movement is complete. Each use places immediate strain on Nico's body. His energy drops sharply, and repeated use leads to visible exhaustion. When he attempts to carry other people with him, the strain increases significantly as he has to maintain control over multiple bodies while moving through the shadows. The effect scales with distance and weight. Short movements are manageable. Longer distances or additional passengers push the ability closer to its limit. There are moments where Nico collapses after extended use, showing that the ability cannot be sustained without consequences. The connection to darkness also deepens over time. Using shadow travel repeatedly strengthens Nico's link to the underworld. He becomes more accustomed to operating within shadows than in normal space, which contributes to his separation from others. At that point, it's not about what the power can do. It's about what it keeps taking every time it's used. And some abilities don't wait. They start changing people immediately. Charmspeak. Charmspeak is the ability to influence thoughts, emotions, and actions through voice. Piper McLean uses this to persuade, command, and override resistance in others. At lower levels, it makes her words more convincing. At higher levels, it allows her to force decisions even against a person's own judgment. The ability works by bypassing normal reasoning. Instead of arguing or persuading, charmspeak directly affects how a person processes what they hear. The target does not weigh options or consider alternatives. The command feels correct in the moment, even if it contradicts their instincts. This changes how interactions function. A conversation becomes one-sided. The outcome is no longer shaped by both people involved. It is determined by the person using the ability. This allows Piper to resolve situations quickly, but it removes the balance that normally exists in decision-making. Resistance is possible, but limited. Strong-willed individuals can push back, especially if they recognize what is happening. However, repeated use or clearer commands increase the pressure on the target. Over time, even resistant individuals can be influenced if the ability is applied consistently. The effect is difficult to detect from the outside. There is no visible force or physical impact. The change happens internally, which means the target may not realize they have been influenced. This makes the ability effective in both combat and negotiation, as it can alter outcomes without direct confrontation. At higher levels, charmspeak shifts from persuasion into control. The user is no longer convincing someone to act. They are deciding for them. Pyrokinesis. Pyrokinesis is the ability to generate and control fires. Leo Valdez doesn't need a spark or a source. He creates flames from his own body and shapes them in real time, using them in combat and to power his inventions. That's what makes it different. Most children of Hephaestus can work with fire. Leo produces it. The flame starts with him and continues as long as he can sustain it. Fire does not stay contained on its own. It spreads, reacts, and grows with everything around it. Keeping it under control requires constant focus. The moment that focus slips, the flame expands beyond its target and starts affecting everything nearby. Scale changes everything. Small bursts can be directed with precision. Larger flames become harder to contain, especially in unstable environments. The more fire Leo produces, the less predictable it becomes. The cost builds alongside it. Every flame draws energy from him. Longer use leads to fatigue, and pushing further increases the risk of physical damage. The ability does not shut off automatically. It has to be managed the entire time. At higher levels, pyrokinesis stops behaving like a controlled ability. It becomes something that has to be held back before it spreads. Extreme battle rage. Extreme battle rage is the ability to enter a heightened combat state where strength, speed, and aggression increase sharply. It is most closely associated with children of Ares, the god of war, including Clarice LaRue. In this state, the user becomes more effective in direct combat, reacting faster and striking with greater force. The shift happens in the mind first. Focus narrows to the fight itself, external distractions drop away, and decision-making becomes immediate. This allows the user to act without hesitation, which is an advantage in close combat situations where speed matters. That same shift removes restraint. The ability does not distinguish between necessary force and excessive force. Once the state is active, the user continues to escalate until the threat is removed or they are physically unable to continue. Control becomes harder to maintain as the intensity increases. The longer it lasts, the harder it is to exit. Returning to a normal state requires the user to regain control over their emotions and awareness. If the rage continues unchecked, it can lead to attacks that go beyond the original target or situation. The effect also carries over after the fight. The user can experience exhaustion, disorientation, or difficulty returning to a calm state. This creates a cycle where repeated use reinforces the same response, making it easier to enter the state again and harder to control it. At its highest level, battle rage stops being a boost. It becomes a state where the fight takes priority over everything else. The Curse of Achilles. The Curse of Achilles grants near-total invulnerability. A demigod who takes it becomes resistant to almost all physical damage, with one exception. A single point on the body remains vulnerable. Everything else is protected. Percy Jackson gains this power by entering the river Styx and surviving the process. While submerged, he has to focus completely on one part of his body. That focus locks in the weak point. Everywhere else becomes reinforced. The result is immediate. Blades, impacts, and direct attacks lose their effect. The body can take damage that would normally be fatal and keep moving without slowing down. In combat, that shifts the balance instantly. The trade-off is built into the structure. All the protection is concentrated away from a single location. If that point is hit, the entire advantage collapses at once. There is no partial failure. It holds completely or it fails completely. That changes how the user has to fight. Every movement, every position, and every decision has to account for that one exposed spot. It turns a near-invincible fighter into someone who still has to think carefully about how they engage. The process itself is a risk. Entering the river Styx requires full control under extreme conditions. Losing focus during the ritual results in immediate failure before the power is even gained. At its core, the Curse of Achilles replaces constant vulnerability with a single, precise weakness. Up to this point, the damage stays with the user. What happens next goes further, because some powers don't just affect the person using them. They start affecting everything around them. Storm manipulation. Storm manipulation is the ability to create and control a full weather system. Percy Jackson forms hurricanes by combining water, wind, and pressure into a single force. Once created, the system continues to move and develop. That's what makes it difficult to control. A storm is not a single action, it evolves. Wind shifts direction, rain intensifies, and pressure changes based on the environment. Percy has to keep adjusting to maintain control as the system changes around him. The longer it exists, the less stable it becomes. External factors begin to influence it. Terrain, temperature, and surrounding air currents affect how the storm behaves. Control becomes less direct over time as the system starts reacting to the world around it. Scale increases the pressure. Larger storms cover more area and require more focus to manage. Percy has to divide his attention across multiple forces at once, keeping them aligned while the storm continues to grow. Everything within its path is affected. A storm spreads rather than targets. It moves across an area, impacting anything caught inside it as it develops. At full scale, this stops feeling like a controlled ability. It becomes something that has to be managed before it expands further. Children of the Big Three. The children of the Big Three are not a power. They are a restriction placed on power itself. After World War II, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades agreed to stop having demigod children. The reason was not political, it was structural. Their children were too powerful. Demigods normally inherit abilities tied to a specific domain. Those abilities have limits. Children of the Big Three operate on a different level. Their powers scale higher, affect larger areas, and interact with forces that other demigods cannot access. Percy Jackson controls oceans, storms, and seismic force. Thalia Grace channels lightning and atmospheric energy. Nico di Angelo commands death, shadows, and the dead. Each of them exceeds the typical boundaries of a demigod. The agreement was meant to limit how many of these individuals existed at one time. Fewer children meant less risk of large-scale destruction and less chance of imbalance between the gods. The rule did not hold. All three gods broke the pact. That resulted in multiple children of the Big Three existing at the same time, each with abilities that could affect the world on a wide scale. This creates a different type of instability. The issue is not how a single power is used, it is how multiple high-level powers interact. When several individuals with this level of ability exist together, the potential for conflict increases, and the consequences scale with it. At that point, the restriction stops being about control. It becomes about preventing too much power from existing at once. Divine true form. A god's true form is the full expression of their power. It cannot be seen by mortals or demigods without consequence. When a god reveals their true form, the result is immediate destruction. The human body cannot process it. The scale of power is too high, and exposure leads to instant incineration. Zeus demonstrates this when he warns that revealing his true form would destroy anyone looking at him. The same applies to other gods. Their presence at full power exceeds what a mortal form can withstand. This is not an attack. Nothing is being directed or targeted. The effect happens automatically. Simply existing in that state is enough to cause destruction. That makes it fundamentally different from every other ability. Other powers can be controlled, limited, or adjusted. A divine true form cannot. It operates at a level where control is not the issue. The problem is proximity. Distance becomes the only form of safety. If a mortal or demigod is close enough to perceive the form, the outcome is already determined. There is no reaction time and no defense against it. The gods avoid using it for that reason. They appear in reduced forms when interacting with mortals, limiting how much of their power is visible. This allows them to exist in the same space without causing immediate harm. At full scale, a god's true form cannot coexist with mortal life. It exists at a level where anything nearby is erased on contact. Be honest. Which of these powers would you take even after knowing what it does to you? Let us know in the comments.